Zooey Mama, how's it going, everybody? I'm here today to talk about Selene, who is the newest card coming to Marvel Snap. I'm going to give my thoughts if she is worth buying with your resources or if she's a bit of a bust and you can save your caches and tokens for some other cards. I'm also going to give an example of the deck that I will be playing with Selene in the first week she comes out, and just give my final thoughts on if she is worth it or not. So Selene is a 1-cost, -1 powered card with an on-reveal ability to afflict the lowest power card in each player's hand with -3 power. Now, before we dive into the details of how she works, it's important to note that she's going into Series 5, so she will be a full 6,000 tokens, but she will be in Spotlight caches alongside Iron Lad and Black Knight. Black Knight is a decent card. He did recently get a buff. If you play discard, he's definitely worth going after. If you don't play discard, he's probably not worth going after, but Iron Lad is amazing. Iron Lad is like the second most flexible card in all of Marvel Snap, right behind Jeff. You can put him in any deck. He's very strong. In my opinion, he's always been a little bit overpowered. So if you do not have Iron Lad, you should probably be opening Spotlight caches this week already, in which case you may get Selene. I do believe Iron Lad is that good. He's worth opening Spotlight caches just for him. Now, if you do have Iron Lad and Black Knight, or if you're not too excited for Black Knight, then you really need to consider if Selene is worth it or not. So she has a very interesting ability. Obviously herself is just a -1 power, so that's not great stats, but it's possible to send her over playing a clog deck, and she's gonna give -3 to a card in your hand and -3 power to a card in your opponent's hand. Presumably we won't know what that card is in your opponent's hand until it's played. Okay, when Spider-Ham turns a card in your opponent's hand into a pig, it does show you, but when Iceman hits a card in your opponent's hand and make it cost 1 more, it does not show you. So I do believe Selene will work the same way. You will not know what card is hit unless your opponent plays it, and you'll see it has 3 less power than normal. So it may be a bit hard to see the value that she produces if your opponent decides to just hold on to that affected card. Now for the deck that I'll be playing her in, it's a junk deck. That's no surprise. Selene herself is -1 power, so she's great to send over to your opponent's side of the board using Annihilus, and you're going to try and hit Green Goblin or Hobgoblin or even the Hood in your hand, make them a -6 or -11 powered card, sending over to your opponent's side of the board. Okay, so this is a full clog package. You're probably always playing her with goblins, at least the Hood, but you're probably going to be using at least Green Goblin as well. And obviously that's great with Annihilus. Another deck that you could run besides full clog, and if you want some kind of clog hybrid, would actually be a Galactus deck. Okay, again, something that works well with goblins. You could have Ravana in there with Galactus. I prefer clog and junk type decks myself, so that's what I'll be playing. And we even have Daredevil here because the first week that Selene comes out is gonna be nuts. If you guys remember the first week that Annihilus came out, it was just junk versus junk mirror matches. Okay, it was complete chaos. It was hard to see how good Annihilus is because Annihilus counters Annihilus. So when both people have it, it's just who plays Annihilus second. So this first week that Selene comes out, she's not going to seem that good because you're going to have mirror matches. And if you have, goblins in your hand and you play Selene and your opponent also has goblins, you're helping your opponent. Okay, so Selene kind of counters Selene like how Annihilus counters Annihilus. So again, the first week is going to be utter chaos. We are going to have to wait a week to see how good Selene is once the meta changes. I'm planning to stick around with junk decks. Again, I'm going to experiment a bit with Galactus. I think that's worth looking into. But overall, this is going to be my go-to deck. Just a classic junk list. If you do not have Annihilus, I would not recommend playing junk. I think he's super important for junk. He's like the most important card now. So if you don't have Annihilus, I wouldn't even try playing junk with Selene. Now, to give my overall rating and thoughts of her, I think she's pretty fun. I think it will be interesting to see, how good she is. And if you do see your opponent play the card that she hit, that's going to be hilarious. Okay, if they end up dropping like a -3 powered Iron Man or something, that's just going to be really funny. Again, there's a good chance they just don't play the card, but she's going to hit Iron Man. She's going to hit Darkhawks. Remember, she's targeting the lowest powered card in your opponent's hand. The only thing she won't really affect is Dracula. Dracula does replace his own power with the discarded card per his ability. Okay, so if you hit your opponent's Dracula, it does nothing, but basically every other card does something, and Luke Cage was recently nerfed, so that helps out Selene as well, because there's just not that much Luke Cage in the meta at the moment. So I think she's going to be pretty fun. Just going to create some exciting moments. If she's randomly generated, that could be good for you or bad for you. Imagine she comes out of X Mansion and she hits the Iron Man in your hand. She's going to create some crazy moments, okay? And just being a one-cost card means she's going to see a lot of play, because if you draw her, you're going to play her right away. In terms of flexibility, I'm only giving her 1 star out of 4. I don't think she's very flexible. I think she's extremely unflexible. Again, I really just see her working in junk decks or with Galactus, okay, stuff that's going to have Hobgoblins. There may be some potential for Ravana shenanigans, where you can actually bring down a card that normally has more than 2 power, or at least 2 power, and now that card is in range of being discounted by Ravana, okay? So there may be some weird secret wombo combo that she creates, but Ravana decks normally run some low-powered cards like Iron Man and Mystique, so I don't see that happening too consistently. So I really think she's tied down to Junk and Galactus. Not very flexible. If you don't play those decks, if you don't like playing Junk, if you don't like playing Galactus, you should probably skip on Selene. Okay, I'm really not seeing how she's used outside of that. In terms of being competitive, I think in those lists, she is very competitive. Again, if you're clogging your opponent's lane, and now your goblins have -3 more power, and if your opponent did end up playing the card that you gave -3 power in their hand, Selene is essentially like a 1/7, okay? -3 to your hand, saying you send over, so that's 3 power. -3 in your opponent's hand, that's another 3 power. And if you manage to send Selene over with Annihilus, that's 1 more power. So that's 7 power from a 1-cost card, which is really good, okay, if you're playing those decks, and you do need to be playing those decks. So I think in those, she's strong. She will be a staple, I do believe, in junk decks and Galactus decks with Hobgoblins. I think she will be a staple. You will want to get her if you do like playing these decks, but if you don't, and if you already have Iron Lad, she's probably passable, okay, because she's not flexible, and a Black Knight is not really worth chasing after unless you really do like playing discard. So I'm not sure she's worth a full 6,000 tokens on her own unless you really love the archetypes that I mentioned, and we'll have to see. So let me know in the comments down below if you agree with my takes on Selene, or if you think she can fit into a ton of decks, or if you think she's just not very good and you think I'm completely wrong about her strength in Junk and Galactus decks. And until then, I'll see you next time.